Hey Outlaws, and welcome back. We're going to review chapter 372 of Berserk today. First part, we're just going to review it. We're just going to take a look and say what we see. The second part, we're going to turn our brains on and then going to give my honest opinion, no filter, about what I think about this chapter and how it's going to move forward. And then obviously the third part will be what I think happens next. All right, so we first open up to a nice view of what's left of Elf Island as it cracks and falls apart. This is obviously Casca's perspective as Griffith is picking her up and carrying her away as he returns back to Falconia. You can see her reaching out, the island splitting apart, and she looks pretty disturbed. Who is she disturbed exactly by? It turns out it is our hero Guts, who is now surrounded by a white light pushing away all of the darkness. And then suddenly, just as if it was a dream, poof, she wakes up in a very nice, luxurious palace, pretty much. And a bed, nice and cozy, out in the open. That way people can keep an eye on her. And what's most interesting is in this bottom left right here, I'll zoom it in for a little bit for you, is that you can see her reaching towards the brand, or the brand of sacrifice, just there. That was Studio Gaga and Koji Mori letting us know that she is not bleeding from that brand, which if you watched my leaks video, you kind of knew my opinion on that. But let's move forward. She wakes up, she steps out, and then immediately servants come to tend to her. Okay. This is a little different. We don't normally see Casca in such a oh, I'm being luxuriously taken care of fashion. And what's interesting enough as you look at her facial expression here is that she is kind of in a daze. She's not really quite there just yet. They get her all dressed up. They comment on her. She's looking fantastic. Her chest seems to grow and shrink by each chapter. Who knows? And again, that blank face, just like she's kind of not quite into it. And then they tell us what color it is. A dress in such vibrant crimson. So just imagine this being very bright red. And then she starts walking around the palace, and then suddenly she notices some troop of soldiers dressed up in a fashion that may look somewhat familiar to her. And it seems that she kind of recognizes them from this facial expression and then begins to cry as if some kind of memory is striking her brain, kind of like she remembers back in the day at Band of the Hawk. And then next we see her going out doing what pretty much amounts to Empress Duties or Queen Duties, where she's going out, she's seeing the people, she's saying hi to them, she's spending time with these kids. And it's not Casca at all. Here's you sitting down at a table where you have multiple forks and multiple knives, which you must know how to cut the meat properly and which knife to use and in which order. So this is definitely not Casca, regardless if you're on my side of the aisle, if you're on the Twitter side of the aisle, or if you're kind of in the middle. We all know something's up. She's just basically going on a dreamscape and not quite there. Oops. And then we get this scene right here, which I will have to cover up because YouTube doesn't like it. But I hope you guys like my drawings. Someone, I think it was Ricari, said that he didn't like my drawings. He thought I could do better. So I put more emphasis on me covering up Casca's good bits. But anyways, again, this is an important scene because, it keeps the attention span of people who enjoy the female figure. But it also points out, a little bit more intellectually important, the fact that her brand is very much not bleeding. 100% no blood, no drops of blood, nothing. That is a clean and good-looking figure. All right, let's move forward. Then we also transition to another scene where she's washing herself and she sees something in water. Again, kind of weird because Casca has never had magical abilities. She did not. No one said that she had magical abilities when she was off island. Nobody said, hey, you have the ability to summon magic, unlike Farnese, who actually did transition and change quite a bit. So this is a little odd to me, and I'll get to that again in my opinion piece. Her just kind of looking at the water and be like, oh, and then suddenly remembering something. Or maybe it could just be somehow her looking at the water and seeing herself, that she's having these memories flash back to her. And then she freaks out. And she goes full on psycho, Elaine mode, just going crazy, like she's like gets surrounded by soldiers. And this is also a point I'll point out later. You have the soldiers come in and they point their halberds, pikes, right at her, like all the pointy bits. Nobody's rushing up with hands to try to get her to calm down. Nothing. And then I guess it was an empty threat because she's able to see this vase, pick it up, and they kind of just sit there and watch her as she chucks it at them. Anyways, fight ensues, girl boss mode, Twitter celebrates, and then she kind of gets surrounded and passes out. But the interesting part is that she's freaking out the entire time, saying she needs to get back, she needs to get back, she needs to get back. It's like guts, 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 guts. And I'll get to that point on the second part. Next we see Griffith kind of just hanging out, looking off to the world tree, and two guys come back, his apostles, and he's like, Irvine. And then he reports in, the bird now dozes peacefully in her cage, her flight over. So obviously something's going on here where Griffith has some kind of control over Casca and is able to block the effects of the brand of sacrifice. Otherwise she'd be in like horrendous pain and freaking out and not happy. So something's going on where Griffith is blocking that. Now, since he is the one that made the sacrifice, and we don't fully know everything we can about the eclipse, it is possible that the person who was sacrificed can choose to block or undo maybe some of the effects of the brand. I'm not sure. That's something to definitely look into later. And then Griffith tells them the east. And they're kind of confused, like, east, what do you mean? And then he stares at the world tree, or as we're told, the twin of the world tree. And that is pretty much chapter 372. It's a lot. It throws it out there. The drawings aren't too shabby. I think they look nice. I mean, but then again, I'm not that big of a stickler about the drawings. I'm more focused on the story.